U.S. President Donald Trump is paying a state visit to South Korea for the first time since his inauguration. There was a third summit between South Korean President Moon Jae-in and his counterpart Donald Trump following Washington summit in June and talks in New York in September. Trump said he would like to get first-hand view of North Korea's nuclear threat during his Asia tour.
North Korea's sixth test of a nuclear device and its missile launches are a threat not only to the people of South Korea but to the people all across our globe.
북핵문제를 평화적으로 해결하고 한반도의 항구적인 평화 체제를 정착시키기로 했습니다. 갈수록 높아지는 북한의 핵과 미사일 위협에 압도적인 힘의 우위를 바탕으로 함께 단호하게 대응해 나가야 한다는 원칙을 재확인했습니다.
And two leaders made a rough sketch of its issues. Before he came to Korea, he visited Japan and had a summit with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and is heading to China for another summit with President Xi Jinping. What will be Trump's message for North Korea this time, and will it be different from the previous ones? It's the topic of our discussion this week on Peninsula 24. For today's discussion, we are joined by two experts in the studio, Dr. Kim Chul-woo, Senior Research Fellow at the Korea Institute for Defense Analyses. Dr. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And in the studio with me is Professor Kim Young-jun from the Korea National Defense University. Professor Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So Trump is visiting in Asia. He first visited at the summit with Shinzo Abe in Japan and also a summit with President Moon Jae-in. And he's heading to China for another summit. It seems that, according to the news outlets, that he's carrying out very blunt messages toward North Korea. So what kind of messages are they?
I think it's Trump's message will be nothing special because he already several times emphasized on his tough talks in North Korea, especially just like his speech, he emphasized on the tough sanction or kind of diplomatic measure also against North Korea. So,
I see. And do you think he's going to maintain the same tone in China as well?
And President Trump's first and foremost agenda is, as we all know, is the North Korea, number one. And it's his recurring theme is America first, but this Asian tour comes with the North Korea first.
North Korea's grave nuclear threat. We cannot allow North Korea's actions and prevent the North Korean dictator from threatening millions of innocent lives.
And the main, his message toward North Korea is that he's more focused on setting up kind of a synchronized pressure against Pyongyang rather than strategic patience over.
That's Obama administration.
Yeah, so it's very strong and synchronized pressure on North Korea. It's very consistent message toward Kim Jong-un regime. And even neighboring countries, all powerful, strong leaders like Xi Jinping, Shinzo Abe, and including President Moon, all are collaborating in dealing with the North Korean regime, particularly in making him to abandon his nuclear threats and missile threats to the, not for just the Korean Peninsula, for the entire world. So President's message has been a little bit toned down from a fire and fury rhetoric or totally destroy a message, but still his message is very clear. And his strong message to North Korea is very powerful to let him not do another provocative actions in this region.
But there was one confusing moment, to me at least, because on the way to Japan, on the plane, Air Force One, he told the reporters that North Korean people are quite industrious and much warmer than the outside people think. So what does it exactly mean? I'm pretty sure that he didn't...
You brought a very interesting concept. And he's used to be kind of off the script guy. Is a very powerful man, but this time a little bit orchestrated to divide the Kim Jong-un regime and the North Korean resident. He's even used the very industrious, warm, hardworking people of North Korea, which means that his strategic communication toward the North Korean regime is somewhat orchestrated to drive a wedge between Kim Jong-un's reckless behavior and the general public's kind of attitude toward the United States and to the world. So in that sense, the message is somewhat corresponds with the preparatory work done by the Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Defense James Mattis's previous visit to the Korean Peninsula, goes very well with the President's coming to Seoul.
I see. Well, but we can still see that, I mean, he hasn't really changed his policy toward North Korea, because Trump and the United States is seriously considering North Korea putting back in the list of state sponsor of the terrorism. Is that right?
So I think the President and the Republic of Korea wants to go let's go together, right? Synchronizing pressure North Korean regime, particularly North Korea kind of tighten the noose on North Korea's money flow. In that sense, on top of that, the United States considering put again North Korean regime on the list of state sponsoring of terrorism. Particularly, some of the top officials pointed out he even murdered at the Malaysian airport is kind of a brother, Kim Jong-nam, with the malicious, VX gas. In that sense, it's a very clear and pleasant danger, not just the nuclear threat, even kind of a terrorist act, its own people and even relatives and friends, and including Jang Sung-taek and Kim Jong-nam and all those people. It's kind of a very clear behavior of its regime's atrocity to the civilized world. So the spectrum has been very wide from the, used to be traditionally nuclear missile threat, but the United States and international community wants to expand it to whatever reckless behavior done by Kim Jong-un regime. The clear point, one thing, very interesting point in this trip during the Asian tour, he didn't want to juxtapose Kim Jong-un versus Trump, right? Kim Jong-un wants to make him a very same level of contrasting effect of the Trump versus Kim Jong-un. But this time, throughout this Asian tour, for the North Korean solution packages, he didn't want to make him the Kim Jong-un, specifically name him, but rather he focused on North Korean regime in general and collaborating with all the neighboring countries, including even Russia at the sidelines of APEC summit. So overall, President Trump's strategy somewhat leveled up by all the supporting steps and high level accompanying strategies of the White House.
But putting the North Korea back in the list of states sponsoring the terrorism, is it going to be a serious pressure for North Korea?
Yes, technically and emotionally. I focus on the emotional issue as well. And this now is only 3 countries the state-sponsor country, as you know, Syria, Iran, and Sudan. And North Korea, it becomes a state-sponsor list with this country. This is kind of emotionally provocation to North Korea itself. So it will be a good option to Trump other than military option.
So it's more like an emotional pressure.
Yeah, to North Korea.
I see. Before Trump's visit, the South Korean government announced its own sanctions against North Korea. So what does this mean? Is it a small gift to President Trump and the United States? What does it mean? I mean, how effective is that?
My personal opinion is a kind of symbolic action rather than actual behavior for effective action. Because this means when administration joined the team as an international community, including the U.S. and Japan and Europe, in maximum pressure on North Korea. So it's kind of symbolic diplomatic measure for Moon's administration. We are now as a same team with you. Yes.
So, well, it's symbolic rather than effectiveness. We're not really sure.
I think it's very effective, you know, in the sense that this summit has been kind of third, you know, summit with, you know, President Moon and President Trump, and President Moon fully recognized the, you know, United States positions on the kind of synchronization of the, you know, all the sanctions against Pyongyang. And in that sense, President Moon cleared out the misperception regarding the Republic of Korea's positioning over so-called balanced diplomacy. The key word is misperception. The reality is the Korea thrives on the rock-solid, rock-U.S. alliance. That's the fundamental baseline of the defense posture on national prosperity. And yes, we have a somewhat different perspective over trade issues. President Trump are focusing on, you know, fair trade rather than, you know, free trade. But in terms of national security, Republic of Korea goes hand in hand with the United States. So I think my understanding of the Moon Jae-in administration's posture and actions against the newly established sanctions over Pyongyang is sincere, and it's for the better for hearts and minds, not just the general public, but the strong laboring leaders, including Xi Jinping and Shinzo Abe and President Trump.
I see. Well, before you know, there's the Trump's visit, yes, high official, I'll name National Security Advisor, the McMaster, he said a military option against North Korea, if there's more provocation, is going to be on the official agenda of the summit. From my understanding, probably it's the first time that military option against North Korea is on the summit agenda, right?
Yes, indeed, there is on the agenda. The recurring theme is the all options on the table, which includes the military options. So without military might and capabilities and willingness to use it, even diplomacy cannot make a difference. So in that sense, but the fundamental you know, theme of the military option is not for war, it's for peace and stability in this region. Secretary of Defense made it clear when he visited Korea, you know, 2 weeks ago, regarding you know, war versus peace. He cleared up it's not for war, but without fully ready military might, even diplomacy, is a kind of just a rhetoric. So military might and capabilities all prepared just in case of the North Koreans' provocative actions. So it's kind of a deterrence strategy, and it cleared off all the miscalculation of the Kim Jong-un regime. I think I fully support of the military options available and ready enough to implement whatever situations are coming.
But you know, for the Korean public, it's really the nerve-breaking words, a military option on the Korean Peninsula. And President Moon Jae-in clearly said that he's against the military options. But also in one interview with the foreign press, he also said, well, although the situation is quite urgent, but he's not really considering developing the trilateral military cooperation between Korea and the U.S. and Japan into the alliance. So what do you think about the statement? I mean, there's some controversial debate. I mean, does it really have to come beforehand the Trump's visit?
Absolutely, definitely, I agree with you. Yeah, this is became controversial issue unnecessarily, especially. And basically, three alliances are military alliance. It's economic alliance? No. It's why three countries together? Because of against North Korea, and sometimes maybe Trump want to contain China or something like that, but Moon Jae-in disagree. So I think as Moon Jae-in said, there is no military action against North Korea. That's true, and Korean people support. At the same time, as Dr. Kim Chul-woo already said, this is very important option on the table because of for more maximizing diplomatic effort as well. So I think so whatever Moon Jae-in said to foreign press, his willingness to use military option for psychological purpose against North Korea, I think so he is open to discuss with the U.S.
Let me add one point. President Moon made it clear, very clear, trilateral cooperation in terms of defending this region against North Korea's possible nuclear threats and ballistic missile threats, very specifically. But it does not mean the trilateral Tokyo, Washington, and Seoul's alliance is not military alliance. So, which means that this very specific cooperation is necessary and inevitable, indispensable, but it's not at this juncture. We are not fully developed into military alliance. So Iraq-U.S. alliance is military, economic, all the over the broad alliance, but the trilateral cooperation is necessary, but it's not military alliance. He made it clear.
Well, let's switch our attention to the U.S. and Japan summit, which was held before President Trump came to Korea. If Washington and Tokyo maintain the hardline policy toward North Korea, and we cannot completely exclude the possibility of military cooperation, develop to the military alliance. So let's listen to the Japanese expert. We have an expert in line, the Professor Narushige Michishita from National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. Professor Michishita, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
What was the most remarkable achievement on the summit between the U.S. and Japan? Was there any progress on North Korea's nuclear issue?
One thing which is clear is that the U.S. and Japan have agreed again to remain firm and keep putting pressure on North Korea. So the Japanese government have announced that it would impose additional sanctions, unilateral sanctions, on North Korea very soon. So we will stay in course. That's a message that we are hearing from the two leaders.
Well, people are paying attention to if there's any solution to resolve the issue of North Korea nuclear program. Well, do you think the developing the military cooperation between South Korea, Japan, and the United States into the alliance will be the one?
Japan does not have an alliance relationship with South Korea, but the three countries, the U.S., South Korea, and Japan, are already very closely working together to strengthen our defense capabilities vis-a-vis North Korea. For example, 2 years ago, the Japanese government decided to reinterpret its constitution so that a self-defense force would be able to work very closely with the U.S. forces if there is a conflict on the Korean Peninsula in support of South Korea. So now our forces can make a very important contribution, including combat missions for the sake of South Korea. So we are in a pretty good shape.
I see. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight. That was Professor Narushige Michishita from National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. Okay, so, well, I mean, many people worried about North Korea may do another provocation during the President Trump's Asia tour. But, do you think it's going to happen during the Asia tour? It's a 12-day visit, so we have a long time to see, or he's going to just wait and see?
My understanding regarding Kim Jong-un's judgment, not necessarily, dumber, kind of decision making. They are like a more, I would say, the sly fox to how to hunker down, how to, provocative enough to make it, splash through the international media influence. In that sense, Kim Jong-un is more likely to look around what's going on around this region, particularly Chinese response. China Xi Jinping's new mandate, strong mandate, like a Mao Zedong level of expertise, the powerful, dominance in every aspect of his Chinese positioning regarding, North Korean stuff and all the economic sanctions. In that sense, without verifying Xi Jinping's positioning toward Kim Jong-un regime, he would not, make so-called calculated decision to make it provocative, another missile test. Yes, all the foreign minister of Lee Yong-ho can make a splashy wording like another atmospheric, H-bomb test in Pacific Ocean. That's a rhetorical, fiery, stuff. But the real threat comes from the CPU of the Kim Jong-un's mindset. So Kim Jong-un, we international media, they framed him as framed him as a rocket man or some fatty boy. But his decision making is not necessarily like a dumbest, like a star. So I think at this juncture he would hunker down a little bit, and after all the touring and is completed, and verifying which the weak points, which the driving wedge point, and he would try it again, provocative.
I see. Well, the last question. A lot of people were looking forward to this Asia trip by Trump. Do you think is there going to be a turning point for the Korean Peninsula?
I hope so, but possibility
Unlikely?
will be not very high from my point of view. But from this Asian tour, maybe Trump would like to change kind of atmosphere and in solving North Korean problem as well. But his strategic objective and political objective is not just North Korea. I think it's more in containing China or whatever the world is. So I think it's he wants to show up his leadership to his American audience, also at the same time to the world. So I think it's it'll be not very a great turning point for us we'd like to see, but I hope we'll see.
Well, it means that we are talking a lot about the North Korea is on top of the list of agenda, but in the end, it's going to be the economy and trade in the President Trump's mind.
Absolutely.
Is that what you say?
It's a newsmaker, President Trump has come in this region. Yes, indeed, strategic patience is over. Right. What's your new Asia strategy? What's your brand name for this, Trump administration Asia policy? Rebalance is not, but what's? And in that sense, he cannot make an argument with America first. So my understanding, President Trump's Asian tour is kind of a last-minute contemplating, kind of strategy to what's going to be the new terminology, new brand name for this Asia policy. In that sense, I think the important thing is how to implement, how to make an actionable measures to solve North Korean problems. North Korean solutions can propose a lot of sometimes rhetorical, bellicose rhetoric stuff, but the fundamental stuff is how to make it happen with the actionable measures. In that sense, so-called maximum pressure and engagement with the maximum strong pressure has completed, and then we are gonna more like have engagement. So I think with a long-term perspective, Trump's message is not aiming for war, but he cannot stand by with stand up with all those kind of North Korean provocative ICBM threats to the United States. In that sense, Trump's strategy is very has been oriented to rhetorical area, but it's time to move on with the more actionable implementation of our North Korean's problems.
I see. Well, Dr. Kim and Professor Kim, thank you for the insightful discussion today. And thank you all for staying with us. We'll be back next week with the hottest issues on the Korean Peninsula. If you want to find out what's happening in and around the Korean Peninsula, it's time to tune in to Peninsula 24. Thanks for watching.